What is going on, man? This is Patrick James here, and today I want to talk about the topic of vulnerability. So the reason I'm bringing this up today is because this morning I had a interview with a fellow dating coach friend of mine, and I won't say his name because he interviewed me for a product he has coming out, and I don't know if he's announced it yet, but basically he was talking about, or he was asking me about one of my products called First Date Stud, where I talk about dating and first dates and how you go about doing a first date, how you even get a girl on a first date. And one of the questions he asked me was, one, what are a lot of the mistakes that I see some guys make on first dates? And two, what are some things that you could do better on first dates? And one of the things that I talked about was guys, they try to think of ways how to make a girl attracted to him on a first date. They learn things like how to playfully challenge. They learn things like how to neg. They learn different ways to like spike attraction, like these fucking pushing a button or something. But the thing that they don't realize is that a lot of dates happen because the girl is already attracted to you on some level. Listen, if this girl is meeting you out one-on-one in a date type setting, she's already attracted to you. So that's one of the mistakes that a lot of guys make, is they don't realize that they don't have to go out of their way to game these girls, to get them so attracted to him on the first date, because she's already attracted to you. She just wants to see if you're a good person, as you should feel the same way about her. So the thing is with dates is, instead of trying to think about how you can get this girl attracted to you, think about how you can build a connection with her as a person and see if she's good for you as a human being. And so one mistake that I see a lot of guys make is that, one, they don't know how to be vulnerable, and two, they don't know how to accept vulnerability when someone else is vulnerable around them. So obviously I am America's charisma consultant, and one of the things that I want to talk about is how to be vulnerable in the most charismatic way. So to think about that, we have to think about what is the true definition of charisma. The true definition of charisma is having that contagious vibe that brings others around you up. It makes them feel better about themselves. It makes them feel more energized as a human being. And the way you can use vulnerability to do this is to be the kind of guy who knows how to accept them for when they are vulnerable around you, or how to accept them at their most vulnerable moments. All right. So one example that I want to give you, so you can really see this, I'll give you this example, and then I'll tell you a personal example of how you could apply this to your dating life and your social life and your just life in general, is the movie I Am Not Your Guru by Tony Robbins. Now, if you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend you go watch this, because there's one scene in there where you can really see what it looks like to accept someone at their most vulnerable moment. So this particular scene in this movie, I Am Not Your Guru, Tony Robbins is standing on the top of the stage, and he says to a crowd of over 5,000 people, "Who here is suicidal? If you're suicidal, stand up." And in the crowd of about 5,000 people, 11 people stood up, okay? And so what he did was he walked down off the stage and kind of went up to whoever caught his attention, wherever his intuition took him, and he came upon this girl who said she was 26 years old and she was suicidal, and he goes, "Why are you suicidal?" And she gave him a very generic answer, like, "I don't know, like, my life's tough. I don't know if I can handle it anymore." And instantly he broke the ice, all right? Pattern interrupted her by saying, "Oh, you can take 30 more years of this shit. Why are you suicidal?" Now, obviously, that's a pattern interrupt, kind of snaps her state into attention, and it's really just a lighthearted way to kind of break the ice here. And yeah, it's humorous, but then right after he said that, she went into the most epic rant of the most traumatic childhood story that I've ever heard. I can't imagine anybody having that kind of trauma in their childhood, and I'll give you a quick backstory. Basically, she was born into this cult called the Children of God, and basically the point of the cult is they think that God and Jesus, he loves everybody, and the only way to convey love to others is through sex. So from a very young age, from like the age of whenever they can stand, 3 years old, they're forced to convey their love for their siblings, their parents, their friends, their classmates through sexual activities. And obviously, being raised in an environment like that, that's a lot of trauma. And she felt like she was it was a breaking point, because she had to be the strong person for her siblings and her family who are all just as traumatized as she is. She was the person that they were all leaning upon, and she just didn't know if she could take it, and she's 26 years old. So in that moment, as she's telling Tony Robbins this story, she's crying, and this is her most vulnerable moment. She's opening up truly because she doesn't know if she can handle this anymore. And Tony Robbins, the look on his face was that of acceptance and sympathy. He was fully present with her in the eye contact, and he truly accepted her. He didn't judge her, and he had zero outcome with her. Now, I really want you to go watch this scene so you can see the look on his face, because that right there is the most charismatic way to be vulnerable, is to allow others around you to be vulnerable, thus raising their self-image and thus making them feel better about themselves. So I'll give you an example of a personal way this happened to me on a date once. So I was out with a girl once. We're on a date, we're getting drinks, and it's a lounge type area, and she had several tattoos. And I asked her very nonchalantly, so tell me, do you have any meanings behind these tattoos? And one of her tattoos was this, it was a tattoo about this big, and it was on her upper back, and it was angel wings. And obviously it kind of looks like a tramp stamp. It's about the size of a tramp stamp. So instantly she goes, "It's not a tramp stamp. I got these because when I was younger, I had a near-death experience. This happened to me, this happened to me. And then my father, as a sign of my courage and my will to live, he bought me this tattoo when I was 18, when I turned 18, as a signpost of that near-death experience that I had. But it's not a tramp stamp." And I never called it a tramp stamp. I never even brought up the fact that it looks like a tramp stamp. But because she got so defensive about it right off the bat, I could tell that this was a moment of vulnerability for her. Obviously, in the past, others have probably made fun of her for having that tattoo that looks like a tramp stamp. And she also opened up about the true meaning behind it, which was a near-death experience, and it was a gift from her father. So that right there was a very vulnerable moment for her to open up to me like that. Now, a lot of guys, they would make the mistake of not knowing how to accept that type of vulnerability. A lot of guys who are pickup artists or guys who learn different tactics on how to get girls attracted to them, they probably would have poked fun at her for having a tramp stamp. Me, on the other hand, being charismatic, you can do this yourself. Rather than poking fun at her, negging her, or trying to do, keep it lighthearted, when shit gets deep like that, when she opens up to you like that, when anybody opens up to you like that, just simply be present with them, look them in the eyes, and say, "Thank you for telling me that. I know it must have meant a lot to you, that tattoo, and I know that you've probably been made fun of in the past for having a tattoo that might look like a tramp stamp. But thank you for opening up like that. Like, that's awesome." Just saying something like that, not only does it convey that you understand where she's coming from, that's social intelligence 101, and that you empathize with her, but you also fully accept them for who they are and their vulnerabilities, and you are thankful that they were able to open up around you. And that right there is true vulnerability. As a fucking man, the ability to allow others to be vulnerable around you in the most charismatic way possible. Now, I know I kind of just went on a rant there, and I hope you got some value out of this, but it's really just some food for thought. Now, if you really want to learn more about becoming the most charismatic, confident, and courageous version of yourself, and maybe you want to learn some dating advice along the way too, click that link below, sign up for the daily VIP email newsletter, and I will see you in the next video.
Wait forever. I'm Jackson.